To tonight's original with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been keeping an eye on. I bet a lot of you are going to be watching the Super Bowl this weekend. I bet some of you might even bet a couple dollars, maybe a couple hundo dollars on the game. Overall, something like $7.5 billion is expected to be gambled on this Super Bowl Sunday. That's a lot of money. And to place a bet nowadays, you don't even have to go to a casino. There's an app for that. Jake Ward reports on how online apps are fueling this betting boom and affecting the real world.
Harry Levant was a trial lawyer for more than 20 years. He spun into addiction and pled guilty to stealing more than $2 million from his clients, blowing it at this casino in a 16-month binge. This was his first time here in 8 years.
How does it feel being here?
I don't think I can describe it in one word. There's a lot of emotions.
He says it took feeling suicidal to help him turn his life around.
On April 27th, 2014, I got within 30 seconds of taking my life. I was trying to write a note to say goodbye to my kids. And I had a moment of clarity where I realized I didn't want to die. Gambling addiction wanted me to die. It was done with me.
Levant says it's harder to quit gambling today than it was when he did it.
I had to walk into this building to place a bet. Gambling is now being delivered on every single electronic device, all day long, all night, on every single sporting event, professional, college.
The ads are everywhere.
You can bet $5 and win $280 cash.
Bet $5 to win $200.
Load the Fox Bet Sportsbook app.
But this is not just a friendly office pool. This is commercial online sports gambling, now legal in 31 states and expected to bring in more than $39 billion annually within 10 years. The floodgates opened in 2018 when the Supreme Court struck down a federal sports gambling ban, leaving it to states to regulate themselves. The result has been incredible money for the industry and for the states. Pennsylvania is a perfect example. 6 months after sports gambling apps first launched, gamblers here spent more than $316 million in a single month. 2 years later, that monthly number has more than doubled, and more than $22 million went to the state that month as tax revenue. Using a phone to place bets accounts for more than 80% of sports gambling, according to sportshandle.com. It's always on, it's largely unregulated, it's harder to keep away from children, and it allows companies to track everything a player does. And Philadelphia, with legal gambling, 4 major sports teams, and a major media market, is a unique lab for the industry to experiment with new forms of online and real-world gambling. This old theater is slated to become an online betting lounge. It's one of 2 in Philadelphia that are a prototype for something that could happen throughout the nation. The operators of the planned Bankroll Club did not respond to our request for an interview, but have told reporters that patrons will use their phones to order food and gamble online. Harry Levant says this is not going to be just a place to catch a game.
This is going to be a public health nightmare.
Companies are offering online bets on everything and anything, down to the color of the Gatorade dumped on the winning coach at the Super Bowl. And for someone like Levant, that means no break from his compulsion. If anything, experts who study addiction say online casinos have all the data they need to know when someone has lost control.
I don't think most people are aware of how easy it is to tell that someone is an addict when you're looking at their data.
Levant is earning a master's degree as an addiction counselor. The NFL did not respond to our request for comment. But for Levant, the Super Bowl is a reminder of the growing power of the gambling industry.
They have converted NFL football into the equivalent of the same dice that I threw inside that building in the grips of a gambling addiction.
A new American tradition worth billions.
Jake Ward is joining us now from Philly. Jake, I'm so glad you're with us, and I'm so glad you brought this story to us tonight because it is fascinating, right? There is a level of detail there as it relates to, you can bet on the color of the Gatorade. It's also a huge industry. How are experts, what are you hearing from them about how do they wrap their arms around this and maybe start to try to rein it in, or is that, horse out of the barn at this point?
At this point, Hallie, we are 4 years into the Supreme Court essentially overturning the federal prohibition on this stuff and turning it over to the states to regulate themselves. But as you heard there, Pennsylvania, for instance, collects 36% on every dollar won. And so the revenue picture for a state that legalizes it, you can see why 31 states have at this point legalized it. And we're talking here about an addiction that probably affects millions of people, but that we do not screen people for. If you and I go to the doctor, right, they ask ask you, have you been smoking cigarettes? Have you been drinking? They do not ask you about gambling. So we really have no idea how many people may be affected here. But what we do know is that this incredible explosion of activity online has people really worried about the future. I was just speaking with a couple of different people who've been addicts in the past, and they say having this phone with them is like being an alcoholic and carrying vodka around with you all of the time. It has created an incredible problem at the same time that it's creating incredible money for the industry and for the states that have legalized gambling, Hallie.
Jake Ward, really glad to have you reporting on this for us tonight. Thank you. If you at home are struggling at all with your relationship with betting, there is help. Call 1-800-662-HELP to reach the HHS National Hotline.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.